Nation Watch presents Breaking Down the Issues, a program taking a closer look at the concerns and problems affecting the quality of life of our citizens in their homes, communities, and country. Now here is your host Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament, breaking down the issues.
Welcome to another edition of Breaking Down the Issues. Of course, my name is Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament and Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. I want to say a special welcome to each and every one of you. I see a number of persons already in the comment section. And as we normally do, if you have comments, you have a contribution you would like to make, of course, it has to be short. I can read it. And once I can read it, I can offer a response. I can even ask the operator to put it up on screen. Many times, when you get that feedback from the people on the ground, the average Guyanese, it goes a long way. You always, as a politician, you always have to listen, keep your ears on the ground, and follow what the ordinary people are saying, the ordinary people in our society are saying. And so I welcome any of your comments, any question that you might have. Once I can read it, I can't promise you that I can get to everyone, but maybe I can entertain two or three as I see fit, and as the program moves along, as the program progresses. Late in the evening, we will have a guest on. At least we expect to have a guest on as we discuss some very serious matters. And so that is something that you can expect later in the program. For those new persons who would have joined us tonight, this program is a serious program. It is one where the objective, the aim, or the intention is to disaggregate the issues, or to put it in simpler terms, break down the issues so that everybody can understand. Many times you have statements being made by seniors, the leader of the opposition, maybe those on the government side, the president, and others, and people might not have a clear understanding of what is being relayed to the public. Many times you might have government officials saying certain things which is not necessarily factual, or has a slant with it. And so we want to tackle those issues. We want to clear it up. If we oppose certain things, or if we have an opposing view as the opposition, we give you that opposing view, among other things. So that is the basis of this program, and that is why we call it Breaking Down the Issues. I want to say a special good night to all the persons joining from in and out of Guyana. I see some of the regular people here, and I want to extend a special good night to each and every one of you. My friend Abdul Noor, my very good friend, welcome, brother. If I can say it in the Muslim term, I believe it's Assalamu alaikum. I'm trying. I'm not a Muslim, but I have an appreciation for Muslims, as I do have for Hindus and all the other religious groups across this land of 6 people. And so welcome, my brother, to my Muslim brothers, to my Hindu brothers. I see Chandrapal Mahabir. Good night to you as well. God bless you as well. Um, that is someone that is a name I see on this program every Sunday. Miss Beatrice from Queens, Jamaica, Queens, New York. I'm very, very much pleased to see how many persons tune in, and and when you follow the demographics of it, the locations and everything. I'm very, very pleased. You have persons in the US, in Canada, in the Caribbean islands, and then you have persons all across the 10 administrative regions following this program. So yeah, I must say thank you. And, one thing you should do at this time is to share the live. Let's share the live so that we can have more and more persons coming in, more and more persons having, being exposed to this program and hopefully having a better understanding of the issues. As I said, it's a serious program, and we welcome your comments, we welcome your interactions, and so please do share the live. We'll begin in a couple of seconds. Just share the live. My guest, while he's not in as yet, I think he should be in another 15 to 20 minutes. Barbados in the house. Good night to you, Marlon. Good night. I see you. Yes, so tonight we want to touch on two issues, um, two trending issues. One which would have been trending for some weeks now. Well, both issues are trending for a number of weeks now and even beyond. And so we want to stick with those issues tonight. There are a number of other things that I would like to discuss. The cost of living, our position on it, uh, the state of healthcare in the country, the state of the school system in the country. There are infrastructure issues. There's so many issues in our society today, but we only have an hour, and so we can only deal with so many issues. So I try to pick the ones that are trending the most, the most talked about program issues. Sorry, and we discuss it. So tonight I want to begin by discussing the GPL situation, the GPL crisis, if I can say that, if I can refer to it in that manner, the GPL crisis or the power crisis that we have, which we have in this country today. It is very, very alarming. It is widespread across the country. Persons are being affected, whether regardless of the various the demographics, regardless of the location, whether you support the APNU AFC or you support the PPP, you're affected the same way. So this is an issue that is affecting Guyanese across the board and across most of the 10 administrative regions. And so we have to zone in on this problem, on this existing problem. I listened to the vice president. He too knows. He knows that it is a serious issue. It was an issue that they had to deal with, or an issue, to put it better, it was an issue which was very prevalent in the period before 2015, some going back all the way probably to 2008, if I recall correctly. You had blackouts problem, and you can go and fact check this. You can go and fact check this. Just Google it, and you will see the newspapers way back in 2008, 2009. 10, 11, all the way there up to 2014. If you go and Google blackout, you will see lots and lots of articles about power outages across the country during that period. You will see Kaichor News, Stabrook News, and others um, saying, we had 100 and something blackouts in the last month or so across the country. You will find those articles, and so it was a serious issue then, and it is becoming a serious issue once again. From the period 2015 to 2020, the AP, while the AP and new AFC was in power, we seek to address this issue in a comprehensive way. We invested in new generator sets. I will get to what the vice president has been saying, falsely saying at his press conferences when it comes to this issue, and I'll get to that in a minute. But we have invested, and I can name a number of areas where we put on new power plants. And Regina, where I'm living, in Region 2, where I'm living, and the folks on the chat from in the comment section from Region 2, you will know this, you can attest to this, that blackout was a daily part of our lives in Region 2 in that period before 2015. And even just after we came to power, but we quickly dealt with it. We would have purchased new gen sets. I believe it was about just around 5.2 megawatt or thereabout, and we brought the blackouts to almost a halt. The blackout was significantly reduced in Region 2 and many other parts of the country. Georgetown, the capital city, the capital of this country, would have also experienced lots of blackout in that pre-2015 period. But during our period in office, we dealt with it. We invested in generator sets that went to Garden of Eden and other places. Bartica, we had new sets that went to Bartica and a number of other places. And so we saw power generation as critical to the livelihoods of all Guyanese, not only to the business community, but the individual homes. And so we dealt with it. That was one of the issues that we dealt with within the first few days of being in office. And so it is very disappointing at this stage that we are returning to the days of blackout. I watched the vice president on Thursday at his press conference, and he too is saying that he is fed up with the blackout situation. But he is doing it in a very cunning way, because when he says that he is fed up, he is telegraphing to the public that, I am not really responsible, or my government is not really responsible. It is them that working at GPL. It is those people at the lower level, and that is what he does. Once he finds himself in a jam, that is what he does. Once he doesn't have an explanation, he reverts to throwing people under the bus. We saw him throw Gosai under the bus, and we discussed that issue last week and the week before. We saw him throw the police just recently. I believe it's at that very press conference, but we're not dealing with that tonight. We'll have a special night for that. We saw him throw the police under the bus with the police issue, when for many, many weeks, somebody had to instruct the police. You had to have a force order so that across the country, so that policia was placed on the vehicle, and now they want it off. It was a terrible mistake, and we said it from the beginning. The opposition said it from the beginning. But what he did is to throw the police under the bus. He doesn't take blame. He doesn't accept any responsibility for for the actions, for his actions, for his own actions, and the actions of his government. And when I say actions or inaction or incompetence, in many regards. So that is how he is dealing with the issue. Um, he is fed up with it. That is one of the excuses. That one of the things that he put forward. Another thing that he put forward is that, and he constantly repeats this lie. He constantly repeats this lie. If you go and check the facts, it will expose him. Raw Lucas was on the television exposing him. The leader of the opposition exposed him, but he continues. He continues to repeat these lies, and I think he has a strategy, or a belief that if he continues to repeat a lie over and over again, then people will believe it. People will believe it. And so we here at the opposition have to debunk these lies. And that is exactly what I set out to do on this program. That is exactly what I set out to do on this program. He says that the opposition did not invest. We did not invest. And that is far from the truth. When we came to power, when we came to power, we invested immediately. The law, the act of parliament which GPL falls under, dictates that you must have a 5-year plan. We brought in a fellow by the name of Gordon, an expert by the name of Gordon, and he set up a team, and we dealt with we tackled right away the maintenance issues. We brought in new sets. We retired some sets. We had to do a lot of line maintenance. On the human resource aspect of it, you had to boost workers' morale. We had a huge technical team handling the affairs of GPL. We had to ensure that spares were readily available. Those are just some of the components of what we did to ensure that there was a reliable power supply. I am seeing my host is indicating. Just bear with me 1 second. Um, I'm looking for a little note if he's getting trouble to come in. Operator, um, I don't know if you can assist, but I see my host is indicating something. All right, let me just send a note. Okay. All right, I'm just bear with me, guys. I just got a message from the host, so I'm trying to clarify if he can get in, and so we can have him backstage when we get to the next topic. But okay, let me just send the number to. Let me just send the number. Uh, Let me just ask him for the number. All right. Folks, we're talking about GPL, and at this stage, and we'll have he's having some difficulty coming in. Let me send him this number. Just bear with me, folks. Yes, I'm just trying to get his number. If he's listening, I'm just trying to get his number so I can pass it on to the operator, and hopefully we can have him come in on this discussion. Um, yes, yes. As I was saying, so operator. Okay, all right. Just bear with me a few seconds, folks. Bear with me a few seconds. Let me just send this number to the operator. All right. I'm gonna copy that and I'm gonna put it to the operator so that we can have that guest in. All right, good. So we seem set. All right. So that is we were talking about the excuses of the PPP and Vice President Jack Dio as in relation to the power outages. I wish they were more honest. I wish they could accept that they have failed the country in the area of power generation, um, and just move on from there. They, we the opposition comes out with a number of recommendations, and they just toss it aside. They should begin to listen to the opposition, because at the end of the day, we manage GPL better than the People's Progressive Party prior to 2015, and we certainly managed it better than the PPP, than what they're doing now from 2020 to 2023. When they came in, when they came into power, what they did was to put a halt. They put a halt on the program of the APNU. They disbanded the the management committee. They told the nation that persons were getting super salary and all sorts of excuses they made to get rid of that team, which was managing GPL in a very competent and efficient way. People, we reduced blackouts, and that team helped us. But they disbanded that team. They stopped the projects for a while. Even the generators. If you go back to the parliament, to the Hansard in parliament, or the recordings during that time, from especially in 2020, you will see their ministers lambasting APNU and talking all sorts of stuff about GPL. There were generators on the way in 2020. When they came in, they met those orders and they criticized it. But we knew that those were necessary. Those sets were necessary to ensure that people have reliable power. We bought sets that were dual purpose, um, used not dual purpose, but the fuel it could use heavy fuel oil, or it can use the natural gas. It can use the natural gas because we looked ahead. We looked to the future, that when the natural gas um, when the natural gas system would have come on stream, that project would have come on stream, then we can switch to natural gas, which would have been the cheaper fuel. And so APNU had a plan. Just bear with me 1 second. Operator, just check with the guest. I see him beeping in on screen, and so just check with him, and once he's in, we can move to the next topic. But GPL is what we're discussing, and the power outage, the current blackout situation in the country. And so APNU had a plan. He constantly says that APNU didn't have a plan, but APNU had a 5-year plan, a moving 5-year plan. I believe by 2022, we should have had more than sufficient capacity to take the big businesses, to encourage big businesses to come online, because the problem that we had, or what we saw, was that a lot of these big customers, big companies rather, banks, the IH, the DDLs, and the other big companies, they are self-generating. And we know that self-generating, and they know too, that self-generating is more costly. And so we had a comprehensive plan to increase our capacity and to bring those big companies online so that GPL can be profitable. We catered for that. But guess what? When you listen to the vice president, he says to this nation that, it is because the excuse you get from him is that these big companies are now coming on stream. They would have subsidized electricity, and so these companies are now scrambling to get on the grid, and they're creating the blackouts. That is not true. It's simply not true. APNU AFC plan was to bring them on, and so this can't be a surprise. That's the first thing I want to say. They cannot be surprised. The government cannot claim that they don't know, unless they just get rid of the APNU plan and they do what they feel like. They can't claim ignorance on this issue. And this thing about them producing, giving a subsidy, you go back and check the record. The government has been subsidizing power maybe for the last 2 decades, or a decade and a half at least. I'm certain of it. We have, from time immemorial, we have been subsidizing GPL. Power has always been subsidized. You can recall in that period before 2015, you had lots of issues about the subsidy. That is one of the things that the newspaper was saying. $10 billion. I can remember $6 billion at one time, probably in 2014 or 2013. Sometime there about $6 billion, and GPL was still giving blackouts. $6 billion in subsidy. So when he comes out and say to the nation that we subsidize PPP, decide that power is important, and we subsidize electricity, and that is why these big companies are now coming on and they're throwing us offline, they're bringing down the system. Not true. It is not true. They have dismantled the system that we left. They have removed the competent staff. They have demoralized the existing staff. And so, and they depended heavily, they put all their eggs into the gas to shore, which obviously cannot, will take some time to come on stream. And so that is the situation. Now they find themselves in a bad situation, having placed all their eggs in the basket of the gas to shore project. They placed all their eggs there, and now the project is taking longer than they anticipated, and so they're in trouble. And that is the reality. But instead of coming clean with the public, you find these excuses. And one of the easiest excuses is to blame the APNU AFC. But as I tell the common man in the street, and I put it raw for them, I tell them the dunces of persons can tell you, or will tell you, because there is no analysis needed. The dunces person can tell you, look, we were getting blackouts regularly before 2015. In the period from 2015 to 2020, the blackouts ease. And now that the People's Progressive Party is in power, from 2020 to 2023, blackouts are here again. The dunces of persons. And this is not to put down anyone, but I'm saying the least knowledgeable average person in the street will say to you that it is worse now than under the APNU AFC. I saw a comment earlier, somebody saying that, you need better management in the country. Precisely, precisely so. And so I wanted to put that there. And, I also wanted to say that they are now promising that the blackouts will end in December because they're getting a few gensets. So blackouts will end. I am waiting to see how that will materialize, because just by bringing a few gensets in to match the capacity that you need, barely matching the capacity, the existing load that they need, I don't see how that will stop the blackouts. That's the first thing. You're barely bringing enough power to match what is required, match the demand. That is the first problem. Secondly, I don't think they have generators to go across the country, because at some stage Essequibo is getting frequent blackout. At times Bartica gets frequent blackout. At other times Berbice get frequent blackout. At other times Region 8 I saw got blackouts for some period. How are they going to solve that problem? How are they going to solve that problem? APNU, we've just said at the leader of the opposition last press conference, we urged them to bring another 50 megawatts. We urge them to do that. They need to bring another 50 megawatt or thereabout to ensure that we have reliable power. They have to do it. And they should take what we are saying seriously. So I want to move because the time is going. There's a lot more that we can say on GPL. I think our strategy to deal with it, in the past we've proven that we can handle GPL, we can management in a very efficient way and have deliver reliable power to people. And so once we get into government, the way to solve this problem is to return us to government, return the people who are competent and capable of dealing with these complex issues. And I should have said as well, gensets alone would not solve the problem, because you can put how much gensets you want. If you have issues with a line, for example, you will still have blackouts. The other day, a vehicle hit a line and the whole Georgetown area in blackout for hours just by one pole coming down. So you have to invest in transmission and distribution, and you have to create a lot of redundancy, we call it, within the system, so that if there is a problem in one area, only that area comes down and the other areas do not suffer. That is how you deal with it. They have to invest in power generation and distribution. But what we find they're doing, they're all about big infrastructure. They're all about big infrastructure. I don't have to say to you why their focus is on infrastructure and infrastructure only. And that is what they boast about. That is what they boast about. Folks, we're talking GPL here tonight. I want to also discuss in depth, as far as the program, as far as the time will allow us, the current issue, the current Guyana-Venezuela controversy, and the developing situation. I was hoping to get my guest in. I don't know if he's backstage. I'm just having a look to see if he's backstage. It doesn't seem as though he's backstage, but maybe he is. And so we will have to continue this discussion on GPL and the power outages. But I urge persons to pay attention to what the leader of the opposition and other opposition members are saying about this issue, and so that you will get the facts on it and not be carried away by propaganda being promoted or being put forward by the People's Progressive Party. They are incompetent and they're not managing the situation or managing the entity properly. And so once you operate in that fashion, you'll get blackouts. And so we will continue to monitor it, and in future programs we will continue to have discussions on it. I'm told that my guests will be on in a few minutes, so we can move to the next issue. And that is the Venezuela Guyana controversy, and that is the most talked about issue um, right now across the country. Everywhere I go, and you can imagine that I'm living in region number 2, in the Essequibo region, in the I don't want to say the disputed region, but the region where Venezuela is creating a dispute, because as far as we're concerned, there is no dispute. Our border has been um, drawn since 124 years ago. The territorial issue was settled 124 years ago in 1899, and we all agreed. Guyana, Venezuela, and Brazil agreed to where the territory ends and where the other begins. And so for us, this issue has been settled since then, and so we will continue to put forward our case. But the issue still faces us. It is very, very serious in my opinion, and the leader of the opposition and the opposition as a whole has been saying that, look, we are ready to give support. This is a national issue, and we will stand with the government on this matter. But at the same time, the government has to treat with this issue as a non-partisan issue. It has to treat with it in a way in which all parties have the relevant information. We share information at all levels. All stakeholders are involved in this process, and in this fight, if I can use that term. And so together we can be unified as a nation. We can be unified as a nation on this matter. A lot of persons, supporters, say to me, why is it that with all that the PPP has been doing to us, or to them, or to us as an opposition, um, supporters and members of parliament and activists, with all that they have been doing to us in terms of discrimination, in terms of how they have been, we have been treated at the parliamentary level, in terms of how they have been handling the country and locking us out, shutting out the opposition. Why are we supporting the government? And I want to say to you that, look, this is a national issue. If Venezuela were to invade Guyana and take over Essequibo, or take any amount of territory, then we will all be in trouble. Our supporters will be in trouble. PPP supporters will be in trouble. Guyanese will be in trouble. We might not have a country to govern. This is serious. And so we have to see above the politics. We have to be responsible. And we have to see above PPP and APNU. This is a national issue. And as an opposition, that is how we have to treat with it. That is how we have to treat with it. There are a lot of developments in the last week. Last week I dealt with this matter, and I explained to you what our position was at that time. There are a number of things that would have developed from then to now. The opposition would have put out a number of press releases. We would have had, and that would have been after we would have written to the Foreign Affairs Minister, and the Chief Whip would have written to the Chief Whip on the government side as well, expressing our dissatisfaction with certain things which would have occurred. We believe that um, the government, in some sense, was reneging on some of the agreed positions that we took together at that meeting of the leader, the opposition, and the president, the two teams, the two sides. And so we were dissatisfied, and we had to communicate that to them. They would have set Parliament for last week, Friday, and so but we didn't agree. We didn't agree because it made no sense. We go to Parliament and we're not sure what is it that we're going there for. We would have pushed in a meeting with the president that there should be an extraordinary parliament. I explained that last week. There should be an extraordinary parliament, and that a motion should be moved in which we will all, both government and opposition, would speak to it, and then the resolution coming out of it, we will all support it. We will be unified at the parliamentary level, and it will unify us as a country. But they seemed at the time to be reneging on some of the agreed positions. And so we had to communicate with them, and hence the delay of the parliament. Now, some of the things we wanted in that motion was the setting up of the National Border Commission, a multi-stakeholder commission in which the opposition would be a part, in which the other stakeholders, maybe the private sector and other stakeholders, would be a part of. And so together, we move forward on this issue. We would have said to them that we would like to see a ramping up of public relations, because frankly speaking, people don't know what is going on. People are afraid. Some are very concerned. And so I see my guest is ready. And so we wanted that. But we will see how we go forward. Parliament, we've agreed to go to Parliament on Monday because we believe that, we have to put the nation first. And I saw after we wrote, and I should say this, operator, okay, let me just finish up with my comment and then I can bring him in. But I saw Gail Teixeira, the chief whip on the government side, putting out a statement and kind of slighting the opposition, to giving a kind of dog whistle, or maybe greater than a dog whistle, that, we are not patriotic. I thought it was out of place. It was out of place. I believe, and we believe, that we are the patriots, the greater patriots in the room. I think together we both want what is best for the country. But I can speak for our side. We are extremely patriotic. And that is why, even in the face of some sections saying that we asking the question why we're supporting the government, we believe that it is the right thing to do at this point in time. We believe that country must come first, and that is our position. Operator, tonight I have with me to discuss this very issue of the Venezuela-Guyana controversy, someone with a wealth of knowledge and experience in the military, and so certainly it would qualify him as. I should mention that he was a very senior rank in the Guyana military, and so it certainly qualifies him as someone who can speak to this issue, someone who would understand security issues, someone who would understand um, what it's like within the military and the border situation, migration situation, and a whole lot in that line. And so I'm very happy to welcome uh, Comrade Aubrey Rettemeyer to the program. Comrade
Thank,
Rettemeyer, a special good night to you, and let me say welcome to breaking down the issues. Since we've rebranded this program, uh, you might be, I think, the first guest on the program. We've had a number of guests before, but not in this setting. And so I'm very pleased to have you tonight with your expertise, your experience on this matter. And I trust that we'll go a little beyond it because you're now on. And so we'll try to have at least about 15 to 20 minutes of discussion on this issue before we close. So I'll get right on the ball. The Venezuelan Guyana controversy. How serious is it?
well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, thanks for welcoming me and inviting me to your program. This has been a very dear subject to me because, in fact, it was because of the situation between Guyana and Venezuela in the 1970s that I decided to join the army. So I joined the army in 1972 and was on that border or in 74. In fact, my first location, first tour of the interior locations was in Region 1 at Matthews Ridge, and then I was sent to Parima, then I was sent to Ettring Bang. So I've had some experience in that particular area. And as I said before, one of the reasons I joined the army was to be in a position to understand to fight so that if I had to be drafted or recruited, I would know what to do. And that was written in an essay I wrote as an entrance piece for people joining the army around that time. Why do you want to join the army? And that was part of my answer. So coming back to today's situation, I consider it quite serious. And I said before, I would not advise that people discuss the strengths or weaknesses of the armed forces in public. But what I could say is that the PPP contributed to the state of affairs that we find ourselves in now. We would have been in a much better situation had the PPP made sure that they kept the training and other opportunities open to officers and men. If they were to provide the logistic and financial support to the army as they should have, things would have been much different. The fact is, the PPP never trusted the army, and therefore, in my view and in the view of many of my colleagues, they did not help the situation over the last 20 odd years. In my times, we did have not only the army, which was larger, but we had the national service, and we had the people's militia, which would have been directly supporting any effort we had in the border. The militia was stronger, it was larger. There was an active national service that could provide reserves, what we would say in depth to us at the time when we needed it. And in addition to that, all the other services, police, fire, and prisons would have been at the disposal of the chief of staff. Now, I want to make a point here that I don't think the PPP understands. There is a principle of war which says the maintenance of morale is important. In other words, the state of mind in which your men go to battle. That's an important element. It determines how well they would or would not fight. And when you look around and you see the PPP is hell-bent on promoting people based on their political proximity rather than on their competence or on merit, they'll have to live with the consequences. People will not follow incompetent officers. They must understand that. They will follow officers that are bright, smart, competent, capable. And if they're going to lay down their lives, they're not going to do it stupidly. And if the PvP, as it has been doing, continues to do, it will get worse. In times of battle, those men will not fight. They need to promote people that are competent to do the job. I am not talking as someone who doesn't understand. I was on the border in 1974. And although I know that my men were outnumbered, we were fired not directly upon, but there was some concerns on the border, and the night it seemed as if there would have been some problems. Those men that were with me, I could tell you, would have given their lives to a man. And it assured me at the time that had we come to blows with the Venezuelans, we're not spoiling for war. Venezuelans have a much larger army and a much larger population. But at the same time, we knew what we could have done then. And we had a number of allies around the world because under the Forbes Burnham government and Mr. Hoyt's government administration, we had friends around the world. And we had a very strong diplomatic corps that provided the first line of defense. So that if it did come down to the point where we had to go to blows, we knew that we'd get help from our friends. When you talk of the numbers of persons now in Guyana, my understanding is that the latest count of Venezuelans in the border, in Guyana, exceeded 102,000 Venezuelans now in Guyana. Of that number, there's been very little screening. I would imagine that any sensible government would maybe select the elderly and the very young and put them into two groups. And then they'll begin to aggressively vet those people who are of a certain age to ensure that we know what we have there. Men and women coming across that border that are of service age could well be plants within the country, so that when you start anything, they have a healthy fifth columnist in the country. These are things which I think cause the incompetence and the sheer foolishness of the PvP in trying to, in my view, beef up numbers to vote. Another point I want to make on this issue.
If I can just hold the point, Comrade Timayo. You raise a crucial point, and well, a number of points I picked up there. The first point, I get a sense, and the opposition has been pushing this as well, that look, we have to take Venezuela off the war path. We must seek, that is the first thing that we should put on the table, that we have to take them off the war path because they have a larger army than us. They have a greater population than us. They might be more equipped than us. And so you rightfully pointed out the diplomatic route. Now, as I understand it, we find ourselves in a peculiar situation. I believe we probably have not been in this situation ever before. And the situation that I'm talking about is Venezuela has been, what is the correct word? I'm looking for a nice word, but it has been engaging CARICOM countries individually rather than CARICOM as a large group. They have, my information says that they have engaged Barbados. They've been tying up deals with Barbados, Mia Motley at that end. They've been tying up Ralph Gonzalez in St. Vincent. They've been tying up St. Lucia, and they've been tying up, the latest one I heard was Trinidad. These are important partners in CARICOM, or friends of Guyana. And so we have not seen, outside of the statement from CARICOM, we have not seen any individual statement coming from these countries.
Well,
and so I believe that is a very serious situation.
Well, we can't blame our enemies for doing their homework. The fact is that they have been doing their homework and they have fielded perhaps some of their best diplomats and other folks who can do their work. While the PPP was preoccupied or is still preoccupied by putting up political hacks that can't perform. So that when we look at what our diplomats could and should be doing, you can't expect them to do what they can't do. When the PP got into office, they sacked or fired most of the competent, seasoned diplomats that we had and replaced them with people who didn't know what they're doing. And now this is a time when the value of those people would be re-examined. I did hear, nonetheless, a few countries making statements, few CARICOM countries making statements. How committed they are to what they're saying, I don't know. But we had a very robust diplomatic corps. We were very confident of the relationship we enjoy with the Brazilians, for example, who were dead set against the removal of any borders in that continent. We were friends with the Cubans and others. And as a result of those things, we were able to persuade the Venezuelans in different ways that the question of arms should not be introduced in this theater because no one would have known what would be the outcome. So we felt that at that time we were very comfortable with the activity of the government on the diplomatic front, as well as a certain level of preparedness in the military environment in which we lived. Also need to point out that presently, some of the things we have to look at. My understanding is that the population of Region 1 has grown from about 3 or 4,000 locals to over 24,000 persons presently. You have therefore almost all those new additions are Venezuelans. Now, if you have your own population in the region outnumbered 6 to 1, 5 to 1, 7 to 1, then if they as Venezuelan citizens are called upon to do just like what the Russians asked the people in the Ukraine to do in certain provinces and regions, to vote for their annexation to another country, and they do it, we can't blame anybody but our foolish selves, because those people ought to be examined. And I know that the people in Region 1 are clearly outnumbered now by foreigners as against locals. Another thing we need to bear in mind is that
if I can get you on that same point, now when I follow an operator, I'd like you to play the clip from the leader of the opposition after this. But when I looked at the vice president's press conference, and it came off to me, he's trying to, if you listen to it, he's trying to massage the Venezuelans. That's how I would describe it. One, and because you're talking about voting, so I'm just giving you my perspective or my opinion. He's massaging them, and then he says to the nation something that I was flabbergasted. I wanted to know if this fella, you say if you're for real. He said to the nation and the country that most of these people are Venezuelans or Guyanese that came back. I either remigrants, or this is what I picked up from him, either remigrants or those who were born Venezuelans who were born to Guyanese parentage. That is totally untrue. When you walk the country, when you're on the ground, whether it's in Anne Regina, New Amsterdam, Bartica, you see Venezuelans. I think I've lived long enough in Guyana as a Guyanese to understand the difference, to differentiate between Guyanese Venezuelans that are returning, that have been returning for years and years now, the difference between them and ordinary Guyanese. I'll have your comment on that.
Well, when you see on our police vehicles, we have policia, it's evidence that the government is somewhere along the line preparing to accept a certain level of bilingual behavior in the country. We had English-speaking people going over to Venezuela. I don't think they ever see anything written there in English. They had to contend with the language of the country. When you see the vice president talking nonsense, it's a rat coming out there. He ain't coming straight. I believe that if you look at the situation, and like you have done and many other Guyanese, we are quite sensitive enough to determine if you have returning Guyanese and the numbers, we should be able to know exactly who is coming back. Why don't they open that, um, let's say, put in public the information available, and every stakeholder could then examine the information. We will then see if you issued birth certificates and citizenship and other papers of residence to people coming back there. Let us see what you've done. Don't do it in secret. In fact, the
Yeah, yeah.
number of persons from
I
Venezuela
was going
coming,
to say I totally agree with you. Go ahead,
uh,
go ahead. Sorry.
a number of persons coming over from Venezuela um, may have been born in to Guyanese parentage, etc. I would deny that there are no such persons, and in fact there will be quite a few, but not as many. And we need stop bamboozling people. Give us the information. We are intelligent enough to examine what we know or what we see and come to a conclusion. And I don't think any Guyanese politician or otherwise would object to Guyanese returning home. What we know is that the government is not playing this game fairly. I remember myself and Minister Felix, who was then Minister of Citizenship, had to answer to
Citizenship.
the same Jagdeo about bringing Africans to vote in Guyana. So I can say now, it is my belief that he is encouraging people to come there purely to vote. I believe that if you examine those people, you'll find people who are returning, but the majority will be people who are not entitled to be there. The other thing I'm saying is that we can fool around. Venezuela has over 15, I think some people say between 15 and 20 million people. So when a million goes on the Brazilian border, Brazil has over 100 million. They go to the Colombian border, they have tens of millions. But when they come to Guyana, we have less than a million. And anytime Venezuela push 500,000 people on us, we'll be in trouble because we will not
Precisely.
be able to handle that. And that is quite easily
Precisely.
that can be
The
done quite
we
easily because we're gullible enough and we want, or at least in my view, the PP wants power so badly that they don't really care. Now, people go out,
yeah.
I know the PNC has always been a
The yeah.
patriotic
The
party. We've,
yes, yes.
we've always done,
The
we're not
the
playing
leader of
catch
the
up with them.
opposition
All right, go
leader of
ahead.
the opposition would have spoken to the issue. I think the operator, you should have a clip there where he's talking about screening. We should ensure that there is screening, recording, and monitoring of the persons who are coming in. And he went on further to say that we should ensure that members of the Venezuelan security forces are not entering. Operator, if you can bring that video and then we can have a brief discussion on it.
If it is true to have a system of screening, recording, and monitoring of Venezuelans, it must also have a mechanism to ensure those who are part of the Venezuelan security apparatus not allowed to come into Guyana and act against our interests. The information provided would suggest that the government is lost on this issue. As an opposition, we are prepared to work with the government, but at the same time, we have to make demands in terms of the government doing the things that are needed to protect us. There are some elements of the discussion I don't want to become involved in here because we're still engaging the government, and our first approach is to ensure we are united. But that unity will only come when both sides are satisfied that we are handling it in the proper way, that we are open, and that there is a mechanism for all the stakeholders to participate, and that we treat the Guyana Venezuela territorial controversy as a non-partisan issue. When those are met, then we will be comfortable.
Let me just say
Comrade
this.
Mayo,
Let me just
yeah,
say this.
before you go, before you have a go at it, I want to just comment here. Now, the leader, the vice president, referred to these kinds of statements and these press conferences as the opposition creating xenophobia and the conditions for discrimination against the Venezuelans. I want to also add, and I don't know if you saw it, that infamous clip from a
Yes,
Venezuelan
yes, I saw
who
it.
seek to
I saw it.
promote the People's Progressive Party, denounce APNU, squarely putting discrimination at APNU's feet. And I see the vice president, in a cunning way, is sort of doing the same thing. And he referred to a meeting with the vice president, and he began to praise the vice president and the People's Progressive Party, and they will not they will not discriminate. And he said, what caught me at the end is that they are prepared to do what they have to do for the PPP. That one stood
Well,
out to me.
I
Your
believe that
comment.
the leader of the opposition made some good points. We should maintain our confidence in what we believe. We should articulate very clearly what we believe. Um, Jack Doe isn't fooling anybody. Whatever he might have said to that young man, the young man is putting it in his own words in Spanish and telling the nation. That guy would never, if he felt that all Guyanese were thinking the same, he'd never go out and praise one party more than the other. Because, he, in my view, he was given enough promptings to say what he said. He didn't just go out there and talk off the cuff. He was schooling what he needed to say. I
Yes,
also
yes.
want to say this, that the government of Guyana is only fooling itself. The soldiers' wives, girlfriends, mothers won't send them to fight no particular war when they're hungry. They will have to ensure they pay proper wages to the nurses, teachers, and other civil servants so that when a man leaves and says he's going to war, if he dies in battle, he has to have a reason to say, okay, my family will be well taken care of. You can't treat us like dogs and expect that we can go and put on our lives there, idiot, like fools. I believe, yes, a soldier has to fight if he has to fight, but the quality of fight is going to be something else. If
I
you train people to be unpatriotic, simply behave like renegades when you want them to, you have them half starved and hungry, and so when there's election, you come out with a box of cocoa rice and a few dollars and you offer them to go in a certain direction. What make you think that if your enemy is smart, he will give them 2 boxes of cocoa rice and some more dollars and tell them go in the other direction? They are not training patriots. They think people are fools and it will come home to haunt them.
yeah.
People are intelligent enough to know when you're dealing with them straight, when you're being honest, when you're being straightforward, and they'll be committed to you. If you deal with them in hypocrisy, then you can vex whatever you sow, you'll reap. And that's my take on that. I
Now,
also want to make one last statement on this matter. I believe that the question of having people seriously vetted, we won't know if they send over people who are in the armed forces over there. They will never admit that they were in the armed forces. They will come over there under different names and they'll pretend that they never saw a weapon. When it's time to pick up one, they know how to use it though. And so we have to have other means of checking out those persons to ensure that they can account for their activities within a certain number of years and be able to try to find a way of corroborating or verifying those pieces of information. And it's got to be done aggressively without hostility. Nobody will allow you to come into their country and just take over. No country does it. The only reason why the PP is doing what it's doing is because it is hell bent on padding that voters list as high as possible. And as I said before, nobody will be fooled by the nonsense. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Before you go, I like the operator to pull a clip. Jagdio, and we're talking about patriotism and the actions of the vice president. I saw a clip recently of the vice president actually saying that, well, we can give them a maritime part, ceding territory to Venezuela. If you can pull up that clip, operator, because the vice president seemed to be attempting to work it back. But I'll save the comments for operator if you can pull that video. Or yes. Yes.
You could probably, on the maritime area, give Venezuela a channel out to the sea. So you make a slight concession in the maritime area.
This same gentleman was prepared to give a corridor to the Atlantic, to Venezuela. A corridor to the Atlantic, let the world know it. We are talking about defending our territorial integrity, and you are talking about giving up some of it to the Venezuelans.
That's what I say. He's a slippery fellow. He's always a slippery fellow. And therefore, whatever he says or does, you have to watch him. He's always full of tricks. So he's going to talk now about a maritime route rather than land concession. Whatever he says, I don't trust him. I think Mr. Burnham had that same proposal offered to him years ago. And I think Ronald Austin was in the office and made some comments about it, that we don't make those kinds of territorial concessions. And so it is my view that the people who are dealing with that aspect of the territory, the international courts dealing with the overall problem, let that pronouncement be said and done. We'll know where we stand as a nation, and we'll go with whatever decision they make. I am not prepared to discuss any of those things until that. Let them pronounce, let the judges pronounce on where we stand with this case that is before them, and let that be the settling mark. I am not prepared to say anything more than that.
Okay. I just wanted to add something there that in although there is evidence and there's video evidence of what he said, he always tried to work this thing back. There is video evidence on the Venezuela issue as we just saw there. There is video evidence on his call for a clean voter list and biometrics soon after they lost power. You would recall. There is evidence on him saying that he will renegotiate Exxon contract. This fella is very, very slippery, as you put it.
That man and okra slime can go in the same container. The man is more slippery than an eel.
All right. We'll expand more on that on another program. But in closing on a lighter note, because I know we've gone over the time. We've done some extra work here. The supporters, the People's Progressive Party, the traditional supporters, how concerned should they be that Jagdio now seems to be seeking to replace them with Venezuelans, and replace them he can easily do in the sense that they are many. And if you have, as the claim is, over 100,000 Venezuelans, in the country, and they're seeking to get them onto the voters list. And you're seeing the posture of the vice president massaging them. He will not even deny. At least I've not seen it. That meeting with the Venezuelans. How concerned should the supporters, the traditional supporters of the People's Progressive Party be?
I think the truth is the supporters should be concerned. I think they should stop simply blindly supporting any political party. And as Guyanese, we should all stand up for what is in our best interest. It is not in our best interest to cede territory to Venezuela. It's not in our best interest to live in poverty. It's not in our best interest to have blackout night and day. And there's no denying that since the PP has gone back into office, the GPL, the situation with the electricity has gotten worse. For years and years of the Granger administration being in office, that situation we are almost gotten rid of that situation. The water quality is extremely poor. And the only reason why Van West Charles was removed from there is because of his connection with the PNC. So that the PEP is not concerned about the quality of life for anybody. They just are keen on milking off in whatever they could in terms of corruption and corrupt practices. And yes, if they can replace their original base by others or supplemented by others, because people are not foolish. That country wants to live in peace. Lots of the PPP supporters want to live in harmony with other supporters of other party. And many of them believe that equity is equity. And you don't ascribe righteousness and good things only to one group. All groups in the country, I believe, have an interest. However, when they try to talk up and make plain their disagreement, they're shut down. And so in order to keep them quiet or to shut them up for good, then he wants to compensate for those people who might have defected by bringing in people from overseas. So it's my expectation that they'll open their eyes, open their minds, and they will do what's necessary. We need to be collective on this border issue. We also need to ensure we have a country that is fair and treats every citizen equally. That's what I want to say.
All right. Major Retimaya, is it Major or Colonel?
Yes, I left as a major.
Major, right?
Yes.
Major Retimaya, it's been a total, absolute pleasure having this discussion on tonight's program. I believe that you've shed light in many areas on the territorial issue with Guyana and Venezuela, and we must thank you for that. I trust that the listeners, the persons that would have tuned in, would have garnered a lot from what you would have said. You're always welcome. Once we have a topic that we want you to discuss, we feel that we can engage you. If you're available, please do come again.
It's been my pleasure, Comrade Chairman, and you did a good job. Thank you. God bless you and your staff.
Yes, team. You too. Folks, that's it. You've heard from Major Retimaya, who has years of experience on the border, in the military, on the border, and he would have just given you, shared a lot of knowledge with you on this matter. I want to say to the public at this point, say to our listeners at this point that, and I want to re-emphasize at this point that as an opposition, we are committed. We are absolutely committed to the people of this country. And so we will work with the government to ensure that we confront this battle. Notwithstanding that we are not pleased, that there are a number of things that are not going right, a number of things that we believe the government must correct immediately. Notwithstanding our dissatisfaction, notwithstanding allegations of senior government officials meeting with Venezuelans and talking us down as an opposition, we are still committed to the cause and to the people of this country. We believe that we are on our path to getting government, and as such, we have to ensure that we do everything possible to lay the foundation, lay the groundwork at this time, so that when we get government, we don't have the troubles that is currently facing the nation. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. We've done an extra half hour thereabout, but I want to thank you for sticking with us and for tuning in to another program of Breaking Down the Issues. Please join me next week at the same time, same place, when we will again discuss the important issues in our society. Thank you. Good night and God bless.